I was about to leave the cafe when I saw them. Two little girls with matching curls, maybe 6 years old, standing just inside the doorway, looking around nervously. They wore bright red jackets that seemed too big for their small frames, and their eyes held that particular uncertainty children have when they're somewhere unfamiliar. The cafe was busy that Saturday morning, filled with the comfortable sounds of conversation and clinking cups. I'd been sitting by the window for 20 minutes, watching people pass by on the street, waiting for someone who clearly wasn't coming. Another failed attempt at finding companionship in my 50s. My friend Martha had insisted I try one of those dating apps, but sitting alone with my lukewarm coffee, I was beginning to think maybe some of us were meant to navigate life solo. The girls spotted me and started walking over. I noticed they held hands tightly, drawing courage from each other. When they reached my table, they both spoke at once, their voices sweet and rehearsed. "Our daddy's sorry he's late." I blinked, confused. "I think you might have the wrong person, sweethearts." The one with the slightly darker curls shook her head firmly. "No, ma'am, you're Miss Carolyn, aren't you? You're wearing the blue scarf, just like Daddy said." My hand went to my neck, touching the silk scarf I'd chosen that morning. Blue, with little white flowers. I'd mentioned it in my last message so my date would recognize me. But surely these children couldn't be connected to David, the man I'd been messaging for 2 weeks. He'd never mentioned having children. "I am Caroline," I said gently. "But I'm not sure I understand." "Daddy really is coming," the other girl said, worry creeping into her voice. "He got stuck helping Mrs. Chun. She's our neighbor, and she fell in her garden. The ambulance came and everything." Before I could respond, a man rushed through the cafe door. He was tall with graying hair and kind eyes that were currently filled with anxiety. He spotted the girls immediately, and his shoulders sagged with relief. Then he saw me, and recognition dawned on his face, followed quickly by embarrassment. "Carolyn." He approached the table, slightly out of breath. "I am so sorry. These are my daughters, Emma and Lily. I made the terrible mistake of mentioning your name and what you'd be wearing while I was trying to figure out what to do, and they apparently decided to come find you themselves." He looked at the girls, with a mixture of exasperation and love. "How did you two even get here?" "We know the way, Daddy," Emma said proudly. "We've walked to this cafe with you before." "That's not the point," he said, but there was no real anger in his voice, just the worn patience of a single father who'd clearly been through similar adventures before. I found myself smiling despite the unusual circumstances. "Why don't you all sit down? You look like you could use some coffee." David hesitated. "I completely understand if you'd rather just leave. This is not how anyone wants a first meeting to go." I should have just canceled, but everything happened so fast, and I wasn't thinking clearly. "Please," I said, gesturing to the empty chairs. "Sit." He did, and the girls climbed into chairs on either side of him. I watched as he helped them out of their jackets with practiced ease, the small domestic gesture revealing more about him than any profile could. "Our neighbor fell," Lily explained to me seriously. "Daddy was working in our yard and heard her call for help. She might have broken her hip. Is she going to be okay?" I asked David. "I think so." Her daughter arrived just as the ambulance was leaving, but I couldn't just leave her lying there, you know? And by the time everything was settled, I realized I was already so late, and my phone was dead because I'd left it in the house. And these two had apparently staged their own rescue mission. Emma beamed at this description. "We wanted to make sure Miss Caroline knew you were really coming." "You told us that keeping your word matters more than anything," Lily added. David rubbed his face with both hands. "I also told you to never leave the house without permission, but apparently we're choosing which lessons to remember today." I laughed, a genuine sound that surprised me. They were very polite, and very determined to defend your honor. Over the next hour, what should have been an awkward disaster transformed into something unexpectedly lovely. David ordered hot chocolate for the girls and fresh coffee for us. The twins told me about their school, their favorite books, and their cat named Professor Whiskers. David explained, with endearing honesty, why he hadn't mentioned having children. In his profile, "I wanted someone to meet me first," he said quietly while the girls were occupied, drawing on napkins. "Not look at me and just see responsibilities and complications. I was planning to tell you today, actually. This just accelerated the timeline considerably." "I understand," I said, and I did. My own marriage had ended 15 years ago, and I'd spent so long being someone's wife, then ex-wife, that I'd forgotten how to just be Carolyn. We all want to be seen as ourselves first. "Do you have children?" Emma asked suddenly, looking up from her drawing. "I don't," I said, "but I have a nephew about your age. His name is Jack. Does he like books?" Billy wanted to know. "He loves them." "Then we could all be friends," she declared with the simple certainty of childhood. David and I talked while the girls colored. He told me about becoming a single father. 3 years ago, when his wife passed away from cancer, I told him about my work at the library, my small house with the garden I was always meaning to improve, my quiet life that sometimes felt too quiet. We discovered we both loved old movies, that we'd both been to the same tiny town in Maine on separate vacations, that we both believed coffee should be strong and kindness should be stronger. The conversation flowed with an ease I hadn't expected, made sweeter somehow by the presence of two little girls, who occasionally interrupted with important observations about cats or clouds, or the color of my scarf. When we finally left the cafe, it was past noon. David walked me to my car, the girls skipping ahead. "I'd like to see you again," he said. "If this whole chaotic morning hasn't scared you away." "It hasn't," I said truthfully. "Actually, I think your daughters might be excellent judges of character. They took quite a risk coming to find me." "They did," he agreed, "though they're going to be having a serious conversation about safety when we get home." I smiled. "Maybe next time we could meet at the park. I'd love to hear more about Professor Whiskers." His face lit up in a way that made him look younger. "We'd like that, all of us." As I drove home, I thought about how life surprises us. I'd gone to that cafe expecting nothing, or worse, expecting another disappointment. Instead, I'd found something I hadn't even known I was looking for. Not romance exactly, not yet. But possibility, connection, the chance to be part of something warmer than my quiet house and predictable routines. Sometimes kindness comes dressed as inconvenience. Sometimes it arrives in the form of two brave little girls in red jackets, holding hands and keeping their father's promise. Sometimes it's simply showing up, staying when you could leave. Giving grace when things don't go as planned. I'd learned long ago that the best parts of life rarely follow the script we write. They come in sideways, unexpected and slightly chaotic, carried by small hands and nervous smiles. And if we're lucky, if we're paying attention, we recognize them for the gifts they are. The blue scarf hung on my coat rack when I got home. I touched it gently, thinking about the morning, about David's kind eyes and the girls' determination, about second chances that arrive when we've almost given up waiting. My phone chimed. A message from David. "The girls wanted you to know that Professor Whiskers officially approves. Also, I'm sorry again. But also, thank you for staying." I wrote back. "Nothing to forgive. Thank you for a perfect morning. Tell Professor Whiskers I'm honored." Outside my window, the afternoon sun painted everything golden. Inside my chest, something I'd thought had grown cold began, very gently, too warm,